What's going on, everyone? Welcome to my first ever NBA player interview on the channel. While usually I'm talking about players and trades, today I'll be sitting down with former Memphis Grizzlies forward Jarnell Stokes to talk about how he's gone from the Hardwood and being an all-SEC basketball player to behind the scenes in Hollywood. Make sure to check the description for the interview article and subscribe for more content. Let's get into this. Okay, Jarnell, so let's jump straight into this. Coming here talking today about, your screenwriting career. You're just in post-production on your first film right now, getting into your second one. But where did this passion come from for writing and screenplay? Was this something that you developed maybe early in your childhood where you were fascinated with films and writing, or was this something that maybe happened later in life? Is there something you could pinpoint this towards, or was it kind of gradually over time?
I would say I always had an art for writing, but I
Mhm.
was never like extremely smart. So my mom was the one always telling me, "Hey, go play ball." She was actually telling me, "Hey, you're a great writer." My dad was like smacking me on the back of the head for thinking I could write, and saying, "Go play ball." So I always had that mixed skill set and then I became like I was like the top player in Memphis and Tennessee
Yeah.
for chess. And then
Oh,
I became good. You thought I was talking about basketball, right?
yeah, I was gonna say because you were for that as well, but yeah.
Uh-huh. So then when I joined, and started playing basketball, and that became a whole different mindset, and I kind of like stopped reading books and writing
Hmm.
during this time period. You got the best looking girl in high school. You're like the prom king type guy. Trying to, so yeah, that became my MO, and I never thought I would even be able to write. After leaving like having seven, eighth grade reading level at that
Hmm.
time, like in the 12th grade. So like you figure out that you'll never ever be able to relearn those skills and keep um and catch up to where people who've been in keeping up with their mind and growing and evolving. So I literally started working at Hip Hop Caucus,
Hmm.
Jay-Z's nonprofit, which has done pretty good stuff. They were like funded by Black Lives Matter, and I
Hmm.
learned through that process. Like we were part of a group that stopped the $1 billion pipeline in Memphis.
Hmm.
And that led to like preventing a Flint-like situation. Memphis known for its agriculture, water.
Hmm.
So that whole political journey really led me to understand that most people are looking at screens and how powerful
Hmm.
storytelling was, as opposed to like protesting
Hmm.
and sports and things of that sort. So I wrote a children's book that got optioned by the producers of The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead, King of the Hill, and that's
Wow.
coming out next year. So I'm excited about that. But
Hmm.
I realized, like, dude, I've been writing a book for like it took like a year and a half to make. You would never think that Illustrator 6 months,
Hmm.
publisher needs like another like 2 or 3 months. Just to
Hmm.
write it took like 4 or 5 months, and then the
Hmm.
editor comes in needs 2 months. Dude, it's just like like creating a movie.
Yeah,
Like we could have made a movie for the same amount of time. So then I
exactly.
to that world, and now I've 7 films the past 3 4 years. I'm getting like calls nonstop right now. Sorry
It's
about
all
that.
good.
7 films the past 3 4 years. Sold to Saban, Vertical, Highland, Lionsgate, Redbox, the list, Impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a whole different journey for me in this short
Mm.
period of time, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, moving fast, moving quick, a lot of projects on your hands. I'm sure someone like you said, you were, one of the top ranked chess players from going to, one of the top ranked basketball players, which we'll jump into now, which, you're able to juggle a lot of stuff with. So kind of going to that, you talk about your screenplays, kind of basing some stuff off your time back in Memphis, whether that be like you growing up or maybe the people around you growing up, which is why I want to talk about the two storylines following young basketball players from Memphis who are looking kind of chase their dreams to the NBA. When you were writing these screenplays, was it going back mainly to your personal experiences, or was it maybe a mix of your personal experiences mixed with some friends around you, kind of be able to create those stories?
Yeah, so it started off with my personal experiences, then um I got more into my dad's story.
Hmm.
So him and his brother just recently my dad, had dreams of being an NBA.
Hmm.
My brother, his brother, my uncle, was a producer with, Dr. Dre on Chronic and, Akon with Convict Music, which are like,
Oh,
hits.
iconic. Yeah, I know.
Right, right. So learning more about their backstory growing up in Memphis really fascinated me. And I thought like just having, that in my that wheelhouse as far as like, breaking the cycle, which
Hmm.
is like, something that they fought so hard to, get away from because their my granddads are like, dead or, you know, all my grandparents are dead pretty much. And in either that or like a bad drug addiction, but we're all like tall and muscular and athletic and smart. And it's like like that breadwinner horse of the family that most people like sort of glorified around in our like neighborhoods. But just getting out of that cycle of struggle that most of my ancestors that, generationally dealt with,
Hmm.
sort of the backstory of this
Hmm.
film. Mhm.
Nice. No, I mean, hey, it seems like you guys, I mean, yeah, the Chronic and, Akon, two, iconic artists, I mean, the Chronic, one of the, regarded as one of the best rap albums of all time. So that's, I mean, that's great to hear. So let's go dive into a little bit to your, time as a basketball player. As we've mentioned, you were one of the highest recruits in the country, ranked a 5-star across all major platforms. And when you were looking across programs, whether that would be, Kentucky, Florida, even staying home in Memphis, what made Tennessee that school that you wanted to go to at the end of the day?
Yeah, so like I grew up with wearing orange, even though I'm from Memphis, it was
Yeah.
all about,
Saw some successful teams when you were growing up too.
uh-huh. Yeah, that was Bruce Pearl's era with
Hmm.
Wayne Chisholm and Tyler Smith, Chris Lofton,
Hmm.
Skylar McBee, who ended up being my teammate.
Hmm.
Melvin Gordon. I mean, these guys were just like everything to me. I thought they were in the NBA players,
Yeah. And then Derrick Rose, right as you were, I
right?
think, in high school as well. So,
Right. Yeah. Derek, yeah. So that, Derek Rhodes being from being, live playing in Memphis, Calipari was recruiting me. And even when he went to Kentucky, he, still offered me there. So that was always like in my back pocket, but it was something about like even just a football team at Tennessee, just having that college spirit is what led me to go to Tennessee over Memphis. And I know I love Memphis. I'd love to, go back and I still have some plans to do different things with film and there's like a Neely's restaurant that I like grew up loving. I'd
mhm,
love to like be a part of like revitalizing that someday.
mhm.
But yeah, so that's a story for another day. But um yeah, that Tennessee orange is different for sure. Yeah.
No, yeah, SEC country. But yeah, so diving into your time at Tennessee, I mean, you were all SEC every year they were there, whether that was your, freshman season, all freshman SEC to, making first team all SEC in your final season. Cross record books in Tennessee as well. When you're playing such high collegiate basketball, how do you not only prepare you for your career in basketball, but your mindset and approaching your, screenwriting and all of your other endeavors off the court?
Yeah, so there's like an expectation that and an aura that comes out, I believe, as an athlete. We've always had this, and not most athletes, just I would say like the top, like there's a comparison that sometimes steals your joy, but also it leads you to break barriers and create more that, other people in a position of just starting out in Hollywood would not have. I'd say just so I have like somewhat unrealistic expectations of myself, and if you're able to just meet the borderline criteria, that's like sometimes 10 times better than what others are doing in your space. So
Hmm.
I've always had that like discipline, and I come from a military background, so that's
Hmm.
kind of instilled in me as well. And just I wish we were doing more on the NIL side back when I was playing. Where was that when I was playing? Like now, guys
Yeah,
like being paid to stay in college. I'm like, yo,
exactly.
it's his own like mini NBA, like
Hmm.
what? And like we didn't even like we couldn't even get a meal back then.
Hmm.
There was no sponsor or donor there to help. I
Hmm.
remember really making a huge emphasis on how like, you know, these schools are like, for instance, I had a shirt that like sold out when I got to Tennessee
Hmm.
for like size 20. I don't know if you're in, it said like stay stoked or something. It's
Hmm.
actually kind of where the ideal of my company came from. And with that in mind, like I really brought it to coach, like, dude, like where did all this money go? Like I can't even like get pizza tonight till like my check
Hmm.
comes tomorrow because I got parking tickets and they took
Hmm.
like half the last check.
Hmm.
Um then so they sent me to like a donor's house to go rake leaves for hours.
Hmm.
So the star athlete of the school that sells
Yeah.
all merchandise is raking leaves at a house just to make like 100, 200 bucks or something, is
Yeah.
insane. So look, that's the era I grew up in as
Hmm.
far as college sports. It sounds so old timey, but
Yeah.
this was just like what, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, no, not
Yeah,
too long ago. You got
right,
guys now with private jet deals that can, have a lot of amount of hours and, you're out here raking leaves in a donor's backyard, which crazy how much the time has changed just in such a short time. So,
right.
um, we'll flash forward a little bit to your playing career. You said your pursuit of screenwriting began during your playing career when you were doing blogging content while you were with the Heat and the Nuggets. Could you talk a little bit about that blog content? What was it pertained, and how have you changed? How have you seen yourself evolve from when you were that blog writer back then to the kind of content you're writing now?
Yeah, so the same creative muscles that athletes use to come up with the right uh, skill set to score the ball, to
Hmm.
spin. It's the same muscles that I conjure up to come up with like a fiction story or a blog. There's numerous uh, there was numerous blogs that went viral back when I was playing, and I had no idea. I was just doing it like to help because I always felt like I could do more. Just being an athlete, just kind of more than an athlete is something I like really stood on and believed in,
Hmm.
and just having certain things go viral, like a day in a life blog, or
Hmm.
a painstaking transformation and ways to help different kids across my
Hmm.
journey. That just led to the next. This was before I even, wrote a kid's book. So you kind of
Hmm.
reminded me that that was actually what I was doing in the NBA. And dude, I would have never thought in a million years that it would lead to me being a screenwriter. I did an interesting fact check on Chat GPT. It's
Hmm.
like the new Google, like on steroids.
Yeah.
And like so, I just searched like the first athlete to like write a a film that sold domestically and internationally, and there was like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who did a TV series.
Hmm.
Julius Erving was like a part of developing some of the creative. Kyrie, with Drew, he didn't write
Hmm.
that, but he was a part of that. And like
Hmm.
actually, like Baron Davis did a film, but it didn't really like sell domestically.
Hmm.
Um, like I'm actually like somewhat making history. I was like number
Mhm.
4 on the list, but actually
Wow.
one screenwriter, the only
Uh-huh.
screenwriter on the list. So that was like, you know, like a blessing to me.
Mhm.
How this is like something that's generationally different than what
Mhm.
other athletes, and it's just molding that new way. Where some guys are getting into fashion, and other
Mhm.
crossover athletes are, you know, real estate. Some are like executive producing films, but to be able to generate a screenplay from scratch hasn't been done before,
Mhm.
except like Kareem's TV series, of course.
Yeah.
It's like just something that I've, really take to heart. So I have a
Mhm.
few films. We just scored a multi-picture deal with Orwell, who
Mhm.
like financed Jeepers Creepers and like, some of the 007 movies and Willy Wonka Land. So they're just having that huge instrument in Germany to back our next few projects
Mhm.
that I wrote is like, you know, everything I've like sort of prayed for. So
Yeah, no, because you look at athletes typically and you think of when you relate them to the movie business, it's, maybe some guy making a cameo or maybe even someone like LeBron, being kind of in a movie. But to be able to be on the other end, like, okay, like these guys, they kind of perform already out on the court, but be able to be behind the scenes and say, hey, I've already performed at the highest level. I'm gonna now, get behind the scenes and, do a passion that I've been passionate about. Screenwriting, I think is it's really cool to see that, you're being able to break that kind of barrier and be at the top, of something that hasn't really been trailblazed in the NBA before. So with that, kind of through this industry, obviously you've battled stuff throughout your playing career like most athletes do. But what has been the biggest obstacle you've had navigating this film screenwriting industry?
yeah, so there's different guidelines to something called Hollywood, right? So people don't exactly act as aggressive by
Hmm.
nature like we do in sports.
Yeah.
Understanding and respecting each industry. Like
Hmm.
I was never, like I said earlier, was never the smartest kid in the room.
Hmm.
I had like a natural skill set, but I
Hmm.
stopped reading after like the seventh, eighth grade.
Hmm.
So once I broke my foot with the Nuggets,
Hmm.
it, I wrote this blog that like went viral called, Painstaking Transformation to Success. That just kind of outlines the, what I was dealing with as far as like every day meditating like 3, 4 hours a day. Like as for the first time in my life, I couldn't get up and go to a gym. Like I've
Hmm.
never been injured before. So that like kind of changed my life. It was right at that point where like I had, all this success come, was playing with the Nuggets and like they were trading Kenneth for Reed and Darrell Arthur was hurt. So I was like getting my chance to like
Hmm.
shine there with like Jamal Murray next to like Nikola Jokic. Like I was a
Hmm.
part of that class and like now like Michael Beasley was on that team too. Um, so I mean, like just having that injury like led me to like meditation and like writing. I would just fill up journals for the first time in my life because I didn't really know how to articulate myself. Being from Memphis, they don't exactly have the best communication skills. So I
Hmm.
was never taught that how to mesh with different cultures and like how to write and read. And I just took like I wrote an album. That's when I wrote the children's book. Wrote a lot of blogs. Just writing journals, like even small things like freaking like 10 words a day. I would just study and learn big words again. It's something that you would do back in elementary school. I just had so much fun evolving and going out to nature. I went and bought a house out in Colorado, so it just became a new world for me and it was all in my mind.
Yeah, no, kind of like putting the training wheels back on a bike and, being able to get back to that point where, you're basically riding with no hands at this point on the
Right.
handlebars. So,
Exactly.
um, And honestly, there's a lot of parallels between the film, entertainment, and sports industry. Whether you want to talk about, celebrities coming courtside to games, or like we talked about the crossover between athletes being in films, and even like I said, someone like yourself now being a trailblazer, being in the screenwriting side. How many parallels have you noticed between those two industries? Like, what has stuck out between that? Like, oh, okay, this kind of relates a lot to my time, playing basketball.
I would say not many. To be honest, it's a totally different world. Like sports agents are like extremely like aggressive and like like guys, go and get what they want. More so on
Mm,
film, it's like a trial and error. You try to fit into certain, mesh holes of what a distributor wants. Um, Dude, I wish I could like draw a comparison. It's like, well, entertainment is very similar. Like if I was in the acting business,
mhm,
I would say that it's very similar to being an athlete.
mm,
But as a writer and producer, it's night and day different. It's
mhm.
almost like owning a team.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I
I
mean,
was gonna
just for
say.
each film, we employ like over 100 people.
Mhm.
So that just kind of gives you an idea of like, athletes aren't like employing people. We're
Yeah,
the
no,
ones.
it's like you're the GM then, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about your first screenplay. Like I said, you just finished up in post-production. You were able to cast an Oscar winner in Cuba Gooding Jr. to be in your film. What was it like working with someone as accomplished as him? And you've mentioned you've played with a lot of, stars in your time. Did you notice any similarities between someone like Cuba and working maybe with like a top NBA player, like let's say Nikola Jokic? Like, were there kind of any similarities in kind of the way they hold themselves? Because those are kind of like the elite people in their industries. Did you
Right.
notice any similarities between them?
Yeah, so Cuba is extremely disciplined. He comes ready to work. So does like Vivica A. Fox, Loretta Devine, DC.
Mhm.
We had zero problems with them. They were, on point, knew all the lines, were, on time. And it's just it's definitely a different mindset when it comes to like sometimes catering to certain things where, an athlete is they well, I don't know. I know a couple of Hollywood athletes too, so let me take that back. But different then there's, different athletes who are um I'd say in the athletic space, you meet a lot of guys who are, extremely hardworking, but at the same time, uh, it's very similar, I would say, just from actors and athletes. When you talk about that, because they are hard workers, but they also have this different side to them too. That's like enjoying life and extremely relaxed and chill. So
Mhm.
the actors I worked with and the athletes I've been teammates with are
Mhm.
I don't have any complaints. It's been amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's talk about, talking about athletes in film. Amir Abdullah, NFL running back, you casted him in your first screenplay. If you had a choice of any current NBA player, maybe one, or maybe past, maybe one that you've played with before, to cast in any future film, who would you choose? Or if not, maybe you don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to hurt this guy's feelings. Do you have maybe a top three?
Yeah, so Amir killed that role, by the way. Like he crushed it. He did such a fabulous job. It was at one point I had to remember that he was an athlete. I've been doing it all his life, so I can tell he's really worked hard at it because acting is not easy. It does not come natural. Like a lot of people think that they can just get on screen and just act like they do in real life, but dude, it's a total different ball game. It really is a different skill set. So
Hmm.
kudos to him. But um, I like guys like Kyrie Irving, for instance. I think he would be an amazing like like he could play like like a founder like Moses a story or something like a Judas and the Black Messiah type thing or something too, featuring Kyrie. I really um, admire his courage and ability to um, overcome obstacles and to like kind of silence the noise. He doesn't always silence it, but
Mm-hmm.
he finds a way through it. And a lot of like hate has kind of led him to be even a bigger name. So I know
Mm-hmm.
he did good in Uncle Drew, but I could see him playing like in like an activist romance story too or something. I don't know. But yeah, a guy like that I would love to, and then there's, different names like, I could see like a Mark Gasol playing and because he's extremely funny. He had so many
Mm-hmm.
jokes and he's class act. But at the same time I've heard him, cussing out coaches too, and so he's that guy who kind of goes against the grain when it comes to. So I can see him playing in like a 40-year-old virgin or something. Yeah.
No, no, no. Some good names. Well, I got two more questions here to wrap it up. First and foremost, you're from Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, you played with them for 2 seasons. Now, looking at where they are now, it's kind of been an up and down season. They've been battling the injury bug, unfortunately, this year, maybe the last couple seasons as well. With some key players, going down like John Morant, Desmond Bane, but they've had some young guys step in. Have you been able to pay attention at all to the Grizzlies this year? Well, I know you've been doing a lot of film work, but have you been paying attention at all? And have you had any thoughts so far in the season for them?
Yeah, I think they're definitely on the right track. They should keep their core. Just the injuries part of basketball, I never really liked.
Hmm.
In sports is even worse than football, but it's just something you can't control.
Hmm.
So I love the direction and where they're headed. And they have a great young group of guys. It happened fast, to be honest. Like, it came grit and grind, the era I was in, and
Yeah.
like late to the party as far as like small ball and chucking up threes and analytics because I was a part of the last of the grit and grind,
Hmm.
and with Z-Bo and Tony Allen, Mike
Yeah.
Conley,
Hmm.
Marc Gasol, like those were, my teammates in the ball I grew up watching. So
Hmm.
to see him make this transition fast and hit it right on the nail with the second pick and John Moran and then get Jaren Jackson, then like all these other young guys to add to that mix, they're on the right track for sure.
Hmm. Awesome. And then you have mentioned that while your film career is taking off, you signed this deal, everything for future films. You've mentioned that a return to basketball is not entirely out of the picture for you. Is that something you're taking day by day, or are you maybe looking to continue to work on some projects? And maybe once you've got to a point, you're willing to kind of really put some more focus into getting back on the hardwood.
Yeah, so I always, tell people they say I retired. I'm like, no, like I took a hiatus. Like
Hmm.
I'm coming back. Like, geez. So I would love to be back out there by like January, February.
Hmm.
And that's something that I've trained every day. Not always with pro athletes. So I,
Yeah.
I like it's so fun beating up on rec players, you know, running point guard and I still train with like pro
Mhm.
trainers, but during the season and things like that, just to keep my conditioning up and do it, I feel like a totally different player. I feel more like adjusted to small ball and just the challenge for me will be just you know getting in shape because I know
Mhm.
the speed of the game increasingly drastically grows at each level.
Mhm.
And like being at rec level right now isn't like ideal, but what it is doing is teaching me,
Mhm.
to use other skill sets to score.
Mhm.
Where if I was just kind of stuck in this like mindset I was in when I was playing, it was just all like inside the paint, occasionally, doing something more skilled, but I was a rebounder,
Hmm.
led the SEC in rebounding and like broke records and things like that. Um, so like that's what I was drafted to do. So now I'm like in this scoring mindset everywhere I go. I don't see that changing once I get back
Hmm.
on court. I think it'll just be a learning curve as far as how much shape I really need to be in. Like that maybe that's the part I forgot. But I look fit. I can run. I can still get up and dunk. Like I'm acting like I'm like 40 right now. Dude. I'm 30 years old, So that I do plan on coming out and hopefully it'll be early Q1 of 2025.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it. And do we have a kind of a release target date, maybe a general area of when we're looking for Break the Cycle to come out?
Yeah, it'll be March Madness or towards the end of like playoffs basketball season.
Awesome. So around springtime then. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, Jarnell, I appreciate you hopping on with me today. Excited to know, your story and, see where things are headed. And who knows, you could be back on the hardwood while you're also having Steph going up on the big screens as well.
Nice. I love it, man. Thank you. Appreciate you,
Uh,
Lynn.